Hey folks, today we're going to take a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called GKR Heavy Hitters, and it's a co-production between Cryptozoic Entertainment and Weta Workshop. Now, if you like what you see throughout the rest of this preview video, I'm going to encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page. There will be a link up in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. Those links will take you to the page. You can find out more information than I can possibly tell you here, and hopefully you'll consider backing the project. Now, GKR Heavy Hitters is a competitive arena combat game that is heavily influenced by anime giant robots. I mean, that is the name of the game, Giant Killer Robots, and in particular the Heavy Hitters, which are the huge centerpiece mechs that each faction has. It's in a futuristic post-apocalyptic Earth where people don't really live there anymore. They just use it as a sporting arena, a giant sporting arena of sorts, where corporations will pit their factions against each other, and there's sponsorships, and it's just fun for the whole family. But you have your giant GKR Heavy Hitter, but then you've also got your other GKRs, which are the like recon support units and combat, and so all these different types of units that will help you out and help your faction out, as well as sponsorship cards, all kinds of things. So let me go ahead and give you a brief look at how the game is played with a prototype version of the game. It's actually a very nice looking prototype, but just bear in mind that what shows up in the final version of the game may change, so that's why you need to keep an eye on the Kickstarter page to find out more information. But in any event, let's take a look, then we're going to come back, we'll talk about it further. GKR Heavy Hitters is a competitive arena combat game for 2 to 4 players. The goal of the game is to destroy the opposing faction's heavy hitter, or by controlling 4 buildings on the map when the reset phase comes around. To start the setup, lay out the board and select the battlefield. The rulebook will have pre-generated maps, or you can concoct your own. You will construct the buildings by placing the printed folded boards into their bases, and then place them around the map in the appropriate spots. Each player will get a faction. Seen here in orange is King Wolf Incorporated, and in blue is Thunder Happy. Each faction starts on one side of the battlefield, and you'll begin with your heavy hitter and play in one of the full hexes along your edge. It's also important to make your faction deck. From a starting 40 cards, you'll need to personally construct a 25 card deck. You'll choose one set of 5 primary weapons cards, and 2 sets of secondary weapons at 4 cards each. Any weapons you don't use go back in the box. To those, you add 5 deploy cards, and the rest of the cards are made up of orbital strikes, maneuvers, and reaction cards. There is a common deck of sponsor cards, which you'll shuffle and place between each players. Take the faction cards, shuffle them, and place them on your dashboard. You'll draw 6 from the deck. Place your energy marker on the meter at 5. Each player also gets a set of defense dice in their color and 2 black attack dice, a set of hollow board tags off to the side for now, and support units, both the miniatures and their cards, placed off the board in your play area. There's a combat, repair, and recon unit for each faction. Roll to decide who gets the Glory Hound marker. Whoever is the Glory Hound will decide who goes first, draws, and plays sponsor cards first, and may get a bonus sponsor card as well. Each round of the game is broken up into 5 phases. First is the deploy phase. If you have a deploy card in your hand, you may use it by spending 2 energy to place out one of your support units in an unoccupied hex up to 2 away from your heavy hitter. Even if you don't have a deploy card, you can still take this action, but it will cost 4 energy instead. Next is the movement phase. The Glory Hound will move their heavy hitter first, and then the other player will move theirs, and then you'll go back and forth with the support units. Heavy hitters need to spend energy to move for every hex, and can even spend more than 5 energy if they're willing to take critical damage to their reactor. But support units have their own movement range that they can move around each turn without spending energy. Neither type of unit can stop on buildings or other units, but they can move through friendly units, and heavy hitters can push enemy support units out of their space. Recon support units are able to move through building hexes as well. You should take note of maneuver cards, which can affect your movement during this phase. The next phase is combat. Each player will lay down a heavy hitter weapon card from their hand face down as a firing line, if they intend to attack. You also add any active support unit cards to the line face down as well. When both players finish, you flip over the weapons card, deduct the energy, and then they are resolved in order of speed, highest to lowest regardless of player order. Heavy hitters may also take critical damage to pay the energy for their weapon card if needed. You'll need to make sure the target of each of your GKR's weapons is within its arc, which means facing the right way. You also need to worry about line of sight and the range of the attack. When ready, roll the 2 attack dice. You need a combined total of 5 or more on the dice to hit the heavy hitters, and a 7 or more to hit the support units. 2 6s are a critical hit. The opposing unit will take full damage with no armor save to defend. 2 1s are a critical failure, and the used weapon card goes into your damage pile. There are several things that can impact your ability to hit. Partial cover adds +1 to the number you need to roll to hit. Conversely, you can get a flanking bonus if you attack the back of a heavy hitter, that is, the side without the arrows, and that will lessen the number you have to hit by 1. Full cover from a building makes it impossible to hit the target unless you have an indirect weapon like a missile and a support unit who can spot the enemy for you. Of course, the GKR you're trying to hit can try and defend against the damage that it's about to take. For every point of potential damage on the weapon, the target needs to roll a defense die. Every die that is equal to or greater than the target's armor value will negate a point of damage. Assuming damage gets through, though, you'll have to resolve it. Supporting units have hit points you keep track of, and when the last of them are gone, they're destroyed and removed from the battlefield. However, you can redeploy that unit later on in the game. Heavy hitters, however, will lose faction cards for every point of damage they take, either from their hand or off the top of their deck without looking. If every faction card ends up in the damage pile, the heavy hitter is destroyed and the game is over. After combat is tagging. If any of your GKRs are adjacent to a building, in turn order, they can tag a face of one of the buildings by placing a holo tag in the top. You can replace enemy tags with your own, unless all 6 slots have been filled with an enemy's tags, which signifies total control. Having just 4 tags in a building also gives you temporary control, and that's enough to count for potentially winning the game. Every tag that you place in a round lets you draw a sponsor card, though you can only have 5 total at a time in your hand. Finally, you have the reset phase. Everyone goes back up to 5 energy, redraws up to, or discards down to, 6 faction cards, and the player who is not the Glory Hound has a chance to steal the token by rolling 2 dice and getting 5 or more. Continue back from phase 1 until one of the game-ending conditions is met. That is GKR Heavy Hitters. Well, of course, as you can see, even just from that prototype, this is a big, epic mech combat game that really puts a lot of other ones to shame as far as just its scope and what you see out on the table, what you get in the final package of the game, the factions, the mechs, the miniatures, the buildings, the boards. I mean, just, everything there is just a ton of stuff. Now, if it was just stuff, that really isn't enough to make a good game, but as it happens, there's a very interesting game here as well to back all of that cool-looking stuff up. There's a lot of arena combat games where you're taking like some sort of giant thing, whether it's a monster or whether it's a mech or whatever the case may be, and trying to take out another player. But in this case, what's really interesting is the fact that, first off, it's very accessible. This is not a game where you're going to be bogged down in a ton of minutia and rules. What there are a lot of strategic rules in the game for people who want to think strategically and tactically and all these different things, but anyone can really jump into it right off the bat. The strategy, the heavy layers of strategy come in after playing the game for a long time, but anyone can jump right into it. So that's definitely one defining trait of the game. But then you add in other cool things like the sponsorship cards, which in addition to having really cool anime illustrations, they're just another flavor and theme of the game. They can have very powerful effects, but also the way that you the primary way that you go about getting them by tagging the different buildings in the game, which goes hand in hand with the corporate sponsorship and trying to impress the audience. Just another interesting aspect of theming taking place together with the mechanisms of the game. Then you've got the different types of support units and how you can use them to be the most effective. It's actually very easy, relatively speaking, to deploy your support units. You don't even have to have the deploy card if you're willing to spend the extra energy to do so. But deciding which ones are going to be the most beneficial for you, also depending on the battlefield, which is always changing, depending on which layout you want. You choose the one you choose from the book or whatever you choose to use. Deciding what is going to be best for you to use in a particular situation, as well as your weapon loadouts and your secondary weapons, and just making the best use of those, because you have to construct that deck ahead of time based on what you see. That adds more and more layers of strategy and depth to the game, and also variety, different types of game scenarios you have each and every time. So that's what I said. It's deceptively easy to just sit and play the game, but then to actually get the most out of it, that's where you're going to put in the time and strategize and have these tactics. It's the two different factions feel different from each other, especially in appearance as well, and it has that sort of old school mech look, not like just they don't look like action figures necessarily. So aesthetically, thematically, and also as far as the mechanisms of the game go and how you actually sit down to play it, there's just a lot of really interesting stuff there. Even combat feels like it's been simplified, but still the way that defense saves work is something new and interesting that I haven't really seen in quite that way in other games. So if any of this sounds like it's really appealing to you or to someone that you know, you gotta go to the Kickstarter page and find out more information. See all the different things that they've unlocked and all the different extra bonus things that you can get. There's just a lot of stuff there that I can't go over in this preview video, but go there. The link is in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. Those links will take you to the page, and hopefully you'll consider backing the project. That is GKR Heavy Hitters from Weta Workshop and Cryptozoic Entertainment. Thank you so much for watching and for supporting our sponsors. Take care.